Hello, you guys. Welcome back to Rebuilding and Recovery. For those of you who are new here, hello, my name is Tracy. I am a recovering heroin addict and a master's therapist here to educate people on addiction because forewarned is forearmed. Look down below the video. You can find other ways to connect with me on social media and through my services. Hit the subscribe button before we begin. It really helps to support this channel and to help us continue to reduce the stigma surrounding addiction. Today we are addressing the golden question, one that keeps so many people up at night, one that I have had myself. And that question is, can addiction be passed on to our children? I myself am 8 years clean from heroin addiction. I have 3 small boys and I worry all the time that they will go down the same path that I did. I know that I am not the only one worrying about this, and I'm here to tell you today that I have some good news and I have some bad news. Which do you want first? We're going to start with the bad. Always end it on good news. And to share this bad news with you, I want to dive a little bit into genetics. Now, our genes are units of DNA that make up the human genome. Think of genes as traffic directors. They direct our body's cellular activity. They say, your eyes are going to be brown. You're going to be prone to addiction. You have a tendency to become overweight. You're prone to heart disease. Our genes come to us from our parents, and they are also impacted by lifestyle over time. Now, there have been countless studies that indeed agree that our genes can be linked to higher rates of substance abuse. Now, just like with obesity or heart disease or breast cancer, just because you have the genes that are linked to these things does not mean that you are automatically going to have these diseases. But it means that you are more likely to have these diseases than the average person. It means that ability could be there. So if you have heart disease that runs in your family, it would be wise to make sure that you keep up with your exercise and avoid fatty foods and things like that. And if you do those things, it is likely that we can prevent heart disease. Addiction is the same way. But the reason why the nature versus nurture question is so controversial is because environmental factors can actually contribute to our genetics as well. People always ask nature versus nurture, which is more powerful, your genes or your environment? But the thing is that they both impact one another. You guys are aware of how evolution works, of how adaptation works. If we live in a very cold environment all the time for hundreds of years, generation after generation, then our family's genetics might begin to change to develop a gene that is more likely to be able to handle the cold. And that is an example of how our environment can contribute to our genetic adaptation and development in the future. So when it comes to passing addiction onto our children, genetics can play a role. However, environmental factors also play a role. And I would dare to say that environmental factors may even play a higher role. For example, one study has shown that communities that provide healthy after-school activities are linked to lower rates of substance abuse. In animal addiction studies, which I don't condone, it has been found that an animal's cage mate can impact their likelihood of becoming an addict. So environment plays a large role in whether or not our children will become addicted in the future. And our environment also plays a role in our genetic variations and our genetic future. The two interlap so heavily that it's hard to say which culprit, genetics or environment, is more significant. So if addiction tends to run in your family, or if you and your spouse are addicted, then yes, your children will likely have genetics that make them more likely to become addicts as well. However, that's also not always the case. It's very possible that heart disease can run heavily in my family, heavily in my genes, yet that gene misses me. I don't have it. I don't ever get heart disease. But here's the good news. Because the environmental factors play such a heavy role, that puts a lot of the control in our hands. So while genetic factors can make your child more susceptible to addiction in the future, our environmental factors that we create for them can help prevent them from becoming addicted in the future. You can combat this by using your presence in the nature versus nurture conundrum. I'm going to actually give you some specific action steps that you can take to help make sure that your child does not become an addict in the future. Number one is keeping your child safe, making sure that they feel safe at all times, and making sure that sexual abuse or physical abuse is avoided in their life. Obviously, sometimes there are situations that are outside of your control. However, as a parent, you can do everything that you can do to make sure that when your child is home and when they are with you, they are safe. And when they are with caregivers, you know that those caregivers are safe. Childhood trauma has been linked to higher rates of substance abuse. Number two is help them be comfortable with who they are. Help them develop self-love and belief in their self. When my addiction progressed, I was very young, 13, 14 years old, and I just remember feeling like I didn't fit in. I had been bullied. I didn't really have a best friend. I was turned down for sports teams, and I just constantly felt like I'm not good enough. I'm not ever good enough for anybody. And I truly believe that that is what led me to pursue starting smoking weed and starting doing pills, and then it progressed from there. You can't control if your child is bullied by children at school, but you can do what you can do to teach them that self-love and to teach them that they can do anything that they want to do. And that brings me to number three, the best way to instill healthy mental health. That's a very professional term. The best way to instill mental health and resilience is through example. Don't use drugs yourself. Prioritize your mental health. Take care of your mental health just the way you do your physical health. Demonstrate to your child healthy ways to handle challenges. When obstacles come up, when you get frustrated, show them how you handle that in a healthy way. Your children will see this, and hopefully they will emulate it. And the other good news is that genes adapt to our environment over time. So if we continue to develop healthy mental health habits and eradicate addiction within our family, that is how you create different genetics for your descendants. So not only can doing these things now help your children avoid addiction, but they can help your children's children avoid addiction. And that is a pretty cool thought. If you are currently struggling with addiction, I really encourage you to reach out and get help. I've linked below this video a link to inpatient and outpatient substance abuse treatment resources. I know that it feels impossible at the moment, but I'm telling you, I came from living in a cellar with spiders and arrest warrants to being a master's level therapist and doing this with my time. So you can do this too. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that this was helpful to you, and I will have another one coming out next Saturday.